thanks everybody for inviting us today. Let's just share with you actually a really good piece of work that the module team did when developing the module K102. Next slide, please, Lucy. K102 is our, I don't know if I can actually know, yeah. K102 is the level 1 introductory module in health and social care. So, and it tracks students from 2 distinct backgrounds. And there was a bit of a challenge as to how to prevent the overburdening of one group with lots of sort of work, but equally underwhelming the other group. And so we tend to attract students from professional programs such as social work and nursing in the main. And then we have a lot of students that join us who have widening participation markers. So quite a mixed group of students. So the module team or the production team put together the curriculum in order to try and meet the needs of this diverse community. So we'll just go on to just sort of highlights in terms of the results. We sent out a survey initially, and we were very fortunate to get 202 responses to our survey, and then we then interviewed some students that volunteered to participate, and we had 12 students that we interviewed, and Lucy's going to share those results as we go on through the slide deck. So a little bit about what was going on. There were 3 pedagogic devices that were developed. One was a confidence rating tool, which is basically emoticons, smiley faces, if you like. And once the student has got to the end of a section of work, they self-assess themselves as to where they actually are. Then at the end of a week's worth of study, there's what we call the understanding check tool, and this has just got 4 multiple choice questions, and the students choose whichever answer that they want to go with. These results then are combined and advises the students then as to what they need to do next. And there's 2 types of activities that the students could undertake, which is a review activity or an extension activity, but they can do both if they want to, but it's just to guide the student as to what may be more beneficial for them. So through this self-directed study week, we pull through all of the data, and then the students can choose. The review activities help the student consolidate their learning of the previous week's work. So some sections of the module are reviewed, or some activities are reviewed, and it just engages the student in some more deeper work about that topic that they've read about. Whereas the extension activities move the student on and can be a little bit more challenging. Maybe a new piece of reading is introduced, and students are asked lots of questions about that, so they develop their writing, or there could be a reflective piece that they need to write. So just really extending their knowledge. Next slide, please, so, Lucy. So that's what it looks like. So I'll hand over to Lucy.
Okay, yeah, so we've just kind of pulled together some of the findings. One of the things we wanted to find out was the extent of use of the tool, and we were very pleased to see about 70% of students used both of the tools through to about block 6. The usage dropped off significantly at block 6. 20% of the students used them sporadically, and where they were focusing on one tool more than the other, it was the confidence self-rating tool rather than the understanding check. And then we had about 10% of students who started off using the confidence rating tool and then moved on to using both of them because they'd found them useful. One of the things that was most popular from students was that they found that the activities prompted them to revise the learning that they'd found challenging. So they found the 2 tools together useful to help them just pause for a moment at different points through the module and think about how well they'd assimilated the learning as they went. 48% felt that the completing them the activities motivated them. to keep studying, and 78% felt that it helped them reflect on their learning, and that they felt more confident about what they had learnt. So in terms of feedback from students, these are some quotes. Okay, so these are just a few quotes that we had from students. I mean, there was some variation in what students valued and what they didn't value, but most of the feedback was that it boosted their confidence as they went through. It made them feel reassured when they were getting correct answers for the understanding checks, and it prompted them to stop and pause and reflect. And they got into a habit of doing that as they worked through the module, which they found a valuable study aid. The main area of negative feedback was in relation to the understanding check, and that was around the fact that they wanted it to be more difficult. So they found that particularly as they moved through the module, they felt that some of the answers were a bit predictable, and they would like them to have been a bit more complex. Just as an illustration, one of the students said that they could guess which was the correct answer because it was the longest answer. So that was one of the things that the module team looked at was going back through all of the questions, and making sure that the answers were all the same length so that it wasn't easy to guess which was the right one. And we also increased, added one question, so there are 5 questions rather than 4 from part of the way through the module. So they wanted something just a little bit more complex. And I think just in terms of, one of the things that we would like to take forward from the project was thinking about how we could use the tool more widely in the future, and whether it would be applicable for other modules as well. And we were certainly thinking in terms of foundation level and getting students into that experience of regularly learning to stop, reflect, evaluate their performance and their understanding, that was a really useful thing to do. As I said, we've reduced the predictability of the understanding check. We also thought it would be useful to develop some guidance on the value of internal self-evaluation. One of the things that came out from the study was that some students really valued that kind of internal evaluation that they did through stopping and pausing and thinking about how am I doing, whereas other students wanted the external validation of knowing whether they got the answers right or wrong. And I think probably depending on different students' learning styles, getting a balance between those two is useful. And that's one of the areas that we would like to take forward and do a little bit more scholarship around. The other thing that we wanted was to build into the tool the ability to get better usage, because the usage data we've presented in this project just related to those students involved in this study, and we'd like to be able to generate data on the whole cohort automatically so that we can track through whether there's any impact in terms of students' performance or retention based on whether they're engaging with one or both tools.
And it's Polly, 3 minutes remaining.
Yeah, we're just about at the end. Actually, we've whipped through. So this is the project team. So there was myself from the module team. Shantini Bradstock was part of the. She was actually the SPM for the production of the module and works in LDS. So it was very valuable to have that technical insight as the team. And then we had Linda and Monique also working on the team. And just to let you know, the project report is on Scholarship Exchange, and if anybody is interested in finding out more, then do get in touch. As I said, we think it was a very beneficial tool for these students, and something we'd like to see other module teams consider.